الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, we carry on with our series in the Fiqh of Tahara, and we are still on the nullifiers of al-wudoo. And we mentioned so far several of them. Some of the nullifiers, some of the categories of the nullifiers of al-wudoo being al-kharij min as-sabilayn, whatever exits the front and back passage, wal-fahish min ghayrihima, or whatever exits other than the two private parts that's repulsive. And we also mentioned the issue of sleeping, the issue of touching the private parts, which we just covered, the issue of touching a woman as well. And now we will move on to the next nullifier, and that is mas'alat akil lahm al-ibl, eating camel meat. This is the nullifier number 6, or category number 6, that we'll go over, or depending on how you break it down or how you divide it. Excuse me. So, does eating camel meat nullify wudoo?
Are you asking a question?
Yeah, I'm asking.
To my knowledge, yeah.
Does eating camel meat nullify wudoo? It does nullify it?
Yeah, to my knowledge it does.
Does it nullify? Eating camel meat, does it nullify the wudoo? Yes. What about you? You have a different opinion? Does أكل لحم الإبل ينقض الوضوء ولا لا؟ لحم الإبل ينقض الوضوء؟ تمام. Normally the ikhwah from Bilad al-Sham, from Somalia, they say no because they follow Shafi'i madhab. They think that the main opinion of the Shafi'i madhab is that it doesn't nullify the wudu. But we'll start off by mentioning what's the qawl al-rajih, or what's the more correct opinion, and then we'll go into it, we'll go analyze the adillah and whatnot of the different opinions. So, the correct, or the qawl al-rajih in this mas'ala here, is that eating camel meat nullifies wudu. Eating camel meat nullifies wudu. And this is the opinion of the Hanbali madhab. Okay? So, I want to also touch on something. This mas'ala regarding the nullification of wudu from eating camel meat is referred to as what is called mufradat al-madhab al-Hanbali. And mufradat, what this means is that the Hanbali madhab, in their official opinion, what they held, because sometimes we see within the same madhab there's difference of opinion, right? In the same madhab itself, you'll have the al-qawl al-mu'tamad al-madhab, or the official opinion of the madhab, and then you'll have other differing opinions in the same madhab that are opposing one another. Okay? But when we're looking at the qawl al-madhab, we look at if you want to say the opinion of the Shafi'iyya, we look at the al-qawl al-mu'tamad, or al-qawl al-mu'tamad al-madhab, the official opinion. Okay? Of the madhab. So mufradat, what does this refer to? Mufradat of a madhab means that one madhab held an opinion and differed from the other three madhab. Okay? So if we have a mas'ala and the Hanafiyya, for example, hold one opinion, which will Maliki, or Shafi'i, or Hanabila, they're all on a different opinion, then we say this is one of the mufradat of al-madhab al-Hanafi. تفردوا بهذا القول. They're singled out in holding this opinion, and like I'm saying, in reference to the al-qawl al-mu'tamad fil madhab. So this, and actually as a side note as well, is that mufradat al-madhahib, some people, they think it refers to meaning the minority opinion. Okay, if you see only one madhab has an opinion and the other three madhab hold a different opinion, the opposite opinion, does that necessitate that it's a minority opinion? Why not?
Because if the ijtihad would comprise the answer,
No, I'll rephrase the question. If one madhab in this mas'ala here, we're looking at the qawl of al-qawl al-mu'tamid fi madhhab al-Hanbali. Okay, the Hanbali madhhab, they have the opinion that eating camel meat nullifies the wudoo. The Hanafiyya, wal-Malikiyya, wal-Shafi'iyya, they say that it doesn't. Al-aqwal al-mu'tamida fi al-madhhab, they say it doesn't nullify the wudoo. So do we say that this is by necessity the minority opinion? Forget about the example I'm giving about eating the lahm al-ibn. Okay, I'm just saying, if one madhab holds this opinion and the three other madhab are opposing to it in their qawl al-mu'tamad, their main opinion, does it mean that this opinion is minority? No.
Amongst the four or amongst the broader?
This is the question. So you gave the answer. The reason why is because some people, they think that when we're talking about madhab al-Hanbali says this versus the rest of the three madhab, the main three madhab, they say something else. They say that this is minority opinion. Okay? And then as a result, people always feel like they're uncomfortable following a minority opinion because not much people held that opinion. So this is a misunderstanding. Just because three madhab might be on one side versus one on the other, that one madhab's opinion doesn't mean it's the minority opinion. Because, as the brother just mentioned, there is much more ulama and fuqaha than the three madhab. Primarily, the ulama we're referring to is ulama as-salaf, from the three generations. Okay, so we know that the four imams of the madhab, which one chronologically came first? Who is the first imam out of the four? No. He was the last one, actually.
Is it Shafi'i?
No. No. The only one left.
Abu Hanifa?
Abu Hanifa. So, in the chronological order, who came first, technically speaking? Abu Hanifa, then Malik. Malik was a student of Abu Hanifa, then Shafi'i. Shafi'i was a student of Imam Malik, then Imam Ahmad. Imam Ahmad was a student of Imam Shafi'i. Okay? So, the ulama that came before Abu Hanifa, okay, because Abu Hanifa is from which generation? So Tabi'i, Atba' Tabi'in, in that generation. So Abu Hanifa is very close to the generation, same with Imam Malik, same with the others, they're very close to the generation of the Sahaba, okay? But other A'imma that came from the Salaf and the Tabi'in before them, okay, that came before them, like Imam al-Zuhri, Sufyan al-Thawri, all these ulama that came before them, okay? Or they were also contemporary scholars to them as well. Okay, we have to also take into consideration their opinions. Okay, we gotta consider their opinions. And even the opinions more primarily over that is the opinions of the Sahaba themselves. So when we see that, for example, in the mas'ala of Tariq al-Salah, a person who leaves the Salah, is it kufr or is it not kufr? Lots of people, they say that the only madhab that has an opinion that says kufr is Hanbali madhab. So it's a minority opinion. So they say the minority opinion is Tariq al-Salah's kufr. But they completely disregard that there's ijma' amongst the Sahaba that Tariq al-Salah is kafir. So, we gotta take into consideration that the four a'imma of the madahib, they're al-ayn wal-ras, they're obviously, we love them, we praise them, we hold them to high regard, but there is a lot more ulama and fuqaha other than them, that their opinions are very heavy, and we gotta take into consideration. Like I just mentioned, from the ulama of the Sahaba or the Tabi'in, or Atba' Tabi'in. Okay, so just because something is mufradat of a madhab, it doesn't mean by necessity it's the minority opinion. That's what I wanted to get to, okay? Anyhow, moving forward. So this, and by the way, actually another side point, is that there is, some ulama, they dedicate making books to the mufradat of the madhab. Okay, so we have some ulama, they compile a book, Aqwal al-Mufrada, in a certain madhab. Like the Mufradat of Madhab al-Hanbali, there's a book compiled in this. The Mufradat of the Maliki madhab, book compiled in this. So these are things that some ulama, they analyze and they do deep research on. Some people, they even do Mufradat of one alim. For example, they'll do the mufradat of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. Even though Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah was a Hanbali scholar, they look at the mufradat of which opinions, and there is even misconceptions regarding this about, some people think that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah is a separate madhab, which is incorrect. He is a Hanbali. Some people think that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he differed from the four madhahib so much, many opinions. This is also incorrect. He only differed from the four madhahib in very a small number of aqwal that he held, contrary to what some people believe. Anyhow, moving forward. Excuse me. So, as I mentioned, we'll mention firstly al-qawl al-rajih, which is that eating camel meat, the correct opinion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, is that eating camel meat nullifies the wudoo. And then there's a second opinion that it doesn't nullify the wudoo, okay? So the first opinion So the opinion that says that, we'll start with the opinion that says that eating camel meat doesn't nullify wudu, okay, which is the opinion, it's the mu'tamad, or the main opinion of the Shafi'i madhab, and it's also the opinion of the Hanafi and the Maliki madhab as well. And their main dalil that they use is a hadith عن جابر قال كان آخر الأمرين من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ترك الوضوء مما غيرت النار, which translates to the last practice of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم was that he didn't perform wudu from anything that was cooked by fire, anything that was cooked on fire. Which alludes to a point that earlier on in Islam, it would be required to make wudu. Okay, this is earlier on. It was required to make wudu from eating food that was cooked by fire. Okay? So if you eat meat or food that's cooked or touched by fire, then that's something that would nullify the wudu early on in Islam. But we see that in this hadith that Jabir, he mentions that the last practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was that he left making wudu from eating food cooked by fire. Okay? So this is their main proof that they use to say that eating camel meat doesn't nullify wudu. And they say that this is the strongest proof, and it's a very broad proof. They say that eating camel meat, it doesn't nullify wudu, because this hadith is very general. That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left off making wudu from anything that's touched by fire. So that includes camel meat and other than camel meat, according to them. The second proof they use is qiyas, analogy. They compared eating camel meat to eating the meat of a sheep or any other animal. So they said that we do not make wudu after eating the meat of a sheep, therefore you do not need to make wudu from eating the meat of a camel. And they said that both of those, they're nearly identical in other ahkam, meaning those two animals. So there's no need to differentiate between them in specific detail when it comes to making wudu from eating them. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he refuted this by saying that the type of qiyas they made, comparing eating camel's meat to eating sheep's meat, in this specific matter, is like the type of qiyas where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَى وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. You know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about people saying, I believe my memory serves me correct, it's referring to al-Yahud. They used to make riba halal, or they would say They would say the riba is just like business. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إنما البيع إنما البيع مثل الربا وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. So Ibn Taymiyyah said that this type of qiyas they make between camel and sheep is just like making the qiyas of these people who are a qiyas fasid by saying that business is just like interest. There's no difference from the two. So their analogy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said riba is haram, and then they made their own input and they gave their qiyas saying that no, trading, business is just like riba. And they try to justify doing something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly made haram. So if someone were to ask you, what's the difference between, if someone wants to invest, they want to make money, what's the difference between investing in something you're going to do trading, business, or you're going to invest into something you're going to earn riba from it? What's the difference between them? Like loaning money, for example, to make money off of it. It's a business, right? So banks do. Someone tells you, okay, this is a type of business, this is a type of business. What's the difference between the two? You say, إنما البيع مثل الربا. So it's the same thing. What's the answer? The rest of the ayah, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ruled that this is haram and this is halal. Likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, comparing it to this masala we're speaking about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made camel meat, eating camel meat, a nullifier of wudoo, and didn't make eating sheep meat or other meat a nullifier of wudoo. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he also comments on this, saying that it's one of the worst types of qiyas that's made. So these are the two arguments they used. A third proof they use in this opinion is that it's a common, widespread matter, especially the Arab village, Jazira al-Arabiya in that time. Camels are very common there. So eating camel meat was something constant. It was a very frequent practice that was done. So they say we cannot accept through a hadith ahad that eating camel meat nullifies wudoo. And we spoke about a hadith ahad taking ahkam from it before. And we said that the correct opinion when it comes to taking ahkam from hadith ahad, what is the correct opinion? Is it permissible to take ahkam from hadith al-ahad?
That's like that one narration?
When it's exactly, when there's few narrators, or it's only narrated from one tariq at a level, or there's very few that narrate it, or one person that narrates it. Okay, that's what it's referring to. If the khabar comes from one person, ahad, it comes from one person. Okay? So if the hadith at one level is only transmitted by one person, that's considered hadith ahad. Okay, so what's the ruling on taking ahkam from an hadith al-ahad?
Permissible or not permissible?
Yeah, is it permissible to take ahkam? Can we take ahkam from them or no?
Yeah.
Yes, we talked about this before. We can take ahkam from a hadith ahad. If the hadith has a one level of its transmission, one narrator, making it a hadith ahad, we can still it's still permissible to take ahkam from those ahadith. And the reason, we gave several examples last time. I don't want to go into too much in detail, but we have examples like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sending Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu to Yemen to convey Islam. That's one person he sent. So had it been unacceptable to accept ahkam from hadith ahad, then how do you explain having the core of Ahl al-Yaman, or expected to accept Islam, the whole risala of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from one person? Likewise, the example of when the Sahaba, when the Qibla had changed, and the Sahaba were still praying towards Bayt al-Maqdis, then one Sahabi passed by them while they were in Salah, and then he said, I just prayed with Rasulullah and we are facing Al-Kaaba. Okay, then in Salah they change their direction from Bayt al-Maqdis to the Kaaba, and that's pretty much 180 degree change. They still accepted the khabar even though it came from one person. So the short answer is, as long as the hadith is authentic, then we can accept ahkam from it even if it is ahad or not. Okay? Even Ibn Hazm rahimahullah, he also adds something here, he comments saying that it is nonsense or stupidity, okay, to allege that we do not take a hadith, ahad, in matters that are common and widespread. And he used as an example the mas'ala, if somebody were to have relationship with their spouse, okay, if a man were to have a relationship with his wife, but there is no inzal that took place, there is no discharge of semen that took place, ghusl is still wajib upon them, okay, because we know from other narrations that if the two private parts, the two circumcised parts meet, then that's what makes ghusl wajib. Even if no inzal takes place, even if no mani is released. And Ibn Hazm uses this as an example because he said that the majority of the Sahaba didn't know this hukm. Okay? And it was widespread and common. Anyhow, the fourth proof that is used to support this opinion is that they say that there's no wudoo after eating camel's meat due to a narration that is found in Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah, from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, in which he says, إِنَّمَا الْوُضُوء مِمَّا خَرَجْ وَلَيْسَ مِمَّا دَخَلْ. Says that Ibn Abbas narrated that wudu is a result of what exits or is discharged, not from what enters. Okay, meaning that the discharge of urine, feces, and other secretions are things that nullify wudu, but not from things that enter, like consuming food. Okay? So they use this narration also to say that consuming camel meat does not nullify wudu. And we also have in Musannaf Abdul Razzaq, there's also a similar statement from Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. And the statements here of Ibn Abbas and of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhum, وعن جميع الصحابة, they are authentic, wallahu a'lam. And there are similar statements from other Sahaba, okay, in the same regard, such as one that's mentioned from Ibn Mas'ud and another one that is mentioned from Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, but those are weak. And there's also an athar, or there's a few narrations, a couple narrations that are mentioned, that Ibn Umar and Ali radiallahu anhuma, they ate from a camel's meat and then they went and they made salah without making wudu. But this is also weak. So this is the overall proof of the first opinion that says that eating camel meat does not nullify the wudu. The second opinion is that it nullifies wudu. And this is, like we said, the opinion of Madhhab al-Hanbali. And it's also the opinion the old opinion of Imam al-Shafi'i as well. The new opinion of the Shafi'iyya is that it does not nullify wudu. And we spoke about what it means that the old opinion of a Shafi'i versus the new opinion. What is that? What do we consider the old opinion of a Shafi'i versus the new opinion of a Shafi'i? Who remembers we spoke about that before? Before a Shafi'i rahimahullah traveled to Masr, to Egypt, okay, those are considered his old aqwal, his old opinions. When he traveled to Egypt and he was exposed to more knowledge and more dalil and proof and whatnot, and more aqwal of ulama, he got more hadith and stuff, but then he kind of had a change of madhab, his own madhab. So that's what's referred to as the new opinion of a Shafi'i. Okay? And also, some ulama of the Shafi'i madhab, they did in fact hold the opinion that eating camel meat nullifies the wudu. Okay? Some ulama from within the Shafi'i madhab did in fact hold this opinion, such as Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah and others. And they didn't even select their own madhab's opinion on this matter. Okay? So some of the other ulama of Shafi'iyya that held this opinion is Al-Khattabi, Al-Bayhaqi, Al-Nawawi as we just said, Abu Bakr, Ibn Khuzaymah, and Ibn al-Mundhir. Other ulama that adopted this opinion, but from the Hanbali madhab, of course, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, al-San'ani, and there's also Imam al-Shawkani. And their proof, or the proof that supports this opinion here, is a hadith that is found in Sahih Muslim from hadith Jabir ibn Samurah radiyallahu anhu. And he mentions that a man asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَتَوَضَّأْ مِنْ لَحْمِ الْغَنَمِ? Said, "O Rasulullah, should I make wudu from eating the lahm of ghanam, of sheep?" قال إن شئت فتوضأ وإن شئت فلا تتوضأ. He said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if you wish to make wudu, do so. And if you do not want to make wudu, then you don't have to. قال أتوضأ من لحم الإبل؟ قال نعم فتوضأ من لحم الإبل من لحوم الإبل. Then the man asked after that, should I make wudu from eating camel meat? And then the Rasulullah clearly said, yes, make wudu from eating camel meat. And this is a very, very strong proof in this mas'ala here, because in the hadith, the man didn't only ask about eating camel meat, okay, which would have restricted the strength of this proof for this argument. But he began by asking if eating the meat of a sheep requires wudu. Rasulullah said, it's up to you. If you want to, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Then after that, the man asked, does eating camel meat nullify wudu? And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam clearly said, yes, you need to make wudu from doing so. So the fact that Rasulullah made it optional when it came to eating the meat of a sheep, and then definite that he has to make wudu from eating the meat of a camel, is very strong and indicates the wujub of doing so, or that eating camel meat in fact nullifies wudu. So this is a strong, clear dalil on this matter. We also have a second hadith that is used from al-Bara' bin Azib radiyallahu anhu. قال سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الوضوء من لحوم الإبل فقال توضأوا منها. And this is in Sunan Abi Dawud, An-Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, and Muslim, Imam Ahmad. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about performing wudu from eating a camel's meat, and he said, perform wudu from it, from consuming it, yani eating the meat. So Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, and Imam Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, and Al-Bayhaqi, rahimahullah, said that there's two authentic hadith as proof on this matter, and they were referring to the hadith of Jabir ibn Samurah, as we just took, and then the hadith of Bara' bin Azib, radiyallahu anhum. And there is also other ahadith that is used to support this opinion, however they are weak ahadith, so there's no need to cover them, okay? So then this mas'ala kind of comes down to these two ahadith, okay, for the madhab of the opinion of madhab al-Hanbali, that you must make wudu from eating the meat of camel. And like we said, the first hadith where he's asked about sheep, eating the meat of sheep, and about camel, there's no dispute there about authenticity, because it is in Sahih Muslim, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam clearly ordered making wudu from camel meat, in contrast to making it optional for a sheep's meat. Okay? The second group, okay, that doesn't consider eating camel meat a nullifier of wudu, their main proof in this is the hadith that states that the last practice of Rasulullah was that he didn't perform wudu after eating anything that was cooked on fire. Okay? So we're going to see how this argument plays out between the two sides of this opinion here, or the two sides in this issue here. So they say that Rasulullah, in this opinion of the Hanbali madhab, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded wudu from camel meat and made it optional from sheep's meat. The other side, they say, well, we have a hadith that says the last practice of Rasulullah was that he never made wudu, or that he left off making wudu from eating meat that is touched by fire, that is cooked by fire. So they say the second opinion, or the opinion that says it does not nullify wudu, they say that this hadith entails eating camel meat. It's a very general proof. It's a general hadith here, okay? So then how do they respond to the hadith that's in Sahih Muslim that clearly states that you have to make wudoo from eating camel meat, and the hadith of Bara' bin Azib? So their arguments are, the first of their arguments, I should say rather, is that when it says that they should make wudoo in the hadith, the wudoo that is ordered in the hadith is not the shar'i wudoo. Okay, they said it's just the wudoo of washing the hands. And we spoke about this a couple of classes ago, that sometimes there's difference between the shar'i meaning and just the normal standard linguistic meaning. And a very simple response to that, which we spoke about before, is that we cannot automatically deter accepting the shar'i meaning of a term that is used in the hadith without a proof to do so. Okay, so by default, when there's these terms used in a hadith, we automatically take it to mean the shar'i meaning unless we have an indication that the shar'i meaning is not what is intended. Unless we have a proof or an indicator that a different meaning other than the shar'i meaning was intended. So there's no need to go any further in that. So as we do not have any proof in this mas'ala here that other than the shar'i meaning is intended, then we see that what's meant by wudoo is the wudoo that we make for our salah. Okay? So there's no solid grounds to change the meaning from a shar'i meaning to linguistic meaning. And another response is that the person asking about the meat of a camel asked another question after that about the salah. So after that he said, أصلي في مرابط الغنم. He asked after that, the Sahabi that was asking Rasulullah about the wudoo, the following question was, should I make salah in the sheepfolds or where the sheep stay? So he first asked about wudoo, then he asked about salah. So it's clearly indicating that the wudoo that's being asked about in the question here is the wudoo we make for salah, not about linguistically washing the hands or washing up. A third point that supports that the wudoo is a shar'i wudoo is the question in the hadith. The first question is, أتوضأ من لحوم الغنم؟ قال إن شئت. So he said, إن شئت فتوضأ وإن شئت. So he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when he asked about the making wudoo from eating the sheep meat, he said, if you wish, make wudoo, and if you wish, don't make wudoo. So another opinion that also goes to show that it's not intending the linguistic meaning is that the ulama, they say that eating the meat of sheep is a lot more greasy meat, has a lot more fat to it than camel meat. So had it been the linguistic term of simply washing the hands, then logically speaking, it would be more desirable to wash your hands after eating what is more greasy and more fatty as opposed to what isn't. Because they prioritize the sheep because they said the meat of the sheep has more fat and grease. Yet in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made wudoo from the sheep optional and wudoo from the camel wajib. And the second argument they have against this is that the ahadith ordering wudoo from eating the meat of a camel, they say, are abrogated. It's mansukh. Okay? Abrogated means that the hukum was once there, then it was changed or it was abolished. So they say that the hadith ordering wudoo from eating the meat of camel, they say it's abrogated. Okay, they say that we have nasakh in Islam and those ahadith are abrogated. And what are they abrogated by? They say the first hadith that they used as dalil to say that the last practice of Rasulullah, and that's the key here, the last practice of Rasulullah was that he left off wudoo from whatever was cooked by fire. So anything cooked on fire, he would eat it and he didn't perform wudoo from it. And they say that that is a broad hadith, everything cooked on fire, including the meat of camel. So there are several ways to respond or to rebuttal this argument here. So their argument that the hadith ordering wudoo from eating the camel's meat are abrogated, the first response is when authentic ahadith appear to contradict, and it's important to note that, we say appear, if authentic ahadith appear to contradict, really, if they are authentic, then there is no contradiction. The contradiction is only in the mind of the one trying to analyze and understand. But if the ahadith, the narrations are all authentic, then there is no contradiction there. Walillah alhamd. So sometimes, human beings, we have shortcomings in our ability to understand and make sense of some masail, so we kind of perceive things to be contradictory, when in fact, authentic ahadith do not contradict. And going forward, as I was saying, when authentic ahadith appear to contradict, we do not resort to claiming abrogation unless we cannot combine between them. Okay, al-jami' bayn al-nusus is muqaddam ala al-nasakh. We do not say that we automatically resort to saying something is mansukh because we have two authentic proof that look like they contradict. The first step we do is we try to reconcile between them, to use them both. Okay, and the reason why we do that is if somebody reconciles between them both, he's using both of the narrations, both of the ahadith, both of the proofs in the mas'ala. Whereas if somebody wants to claim nasakh, then he's going to reject one of them and use only one of them. Okay, so it's awla to use them both and to rely upon them both and to reconcile instead of disregarding one and using the other. So the second response to this allegation here, that eating the meat of the camel is mansukh, that it is abrogated, is that in order to allege this nasakh, that it is abrogated, you need to know which hadith was before the other. And here it isn't clear. The hadith that say it's abrogated, okay, there's a rule that says, min shurut al-nasakh, ta'akhur al-nasikh. That from the conditions of abrogation is that the abrogating proof comes later. Alright, that's logically speaking, that's the only thing that makes sense. If something is going to be abrogated, then whatever is abrogating comes later. That's the latter thing. So here they're saying that Hadith Jabir, that the last practice of Rasulullah was that he did not perform wudoo after eating that which was cooked by fire. So they say that this hadith abrogates the hadith where Rasulullah ordered to make wudoo from eating the meat of camel. So had it been a true abrogation, then this hadith would have to have come after the hadith ordering wudu from eating camel meat. However, that isn't clear here, and in fact Ibn Qudamah, he says, rahimahullah, that the hadith requiring wudu from eating the meat of camel came after the hadith of Jabir, or at the same time. So because this is such an important factor in determining if something is in fact mansukh or abrogated, it's very important to know the sequence of when they are reported. And this is a science that the ulama go into, and the fuqaha, especially the ulama that they focus or they specialize in hadith, they go into to see which hadith was narrated at what time, at which timeline, to see the sequence of what was narrated to determine which narration came first. So sometimes there is ways that the ulama are able to derive that, to see which narration came first, and sometimes you cannot know. Alright? So another response to this claim that the wudu from eating the meat of camel is abrogated is that there was excuse me. Another response as I was saying is that the hadith that is ordering wudu from eating camel meat is ordering wudu from camel meat in general, whether it's cooked or not cooked. Okay? Simply because it is the meat of camel. So there are two different ahadith and there's two different issues that are being spoken about here. A camel's meat nullifies wudu whether it's cooked and you eat it cooked or whether you eat it raw. Hadith Jabir, on the other hand, is talking about eating wudu from what is touched by fire. Okay, so there's two different masail being spoken about in these two narrations here. So that being said, the hadith of Jabir, talking about wudu not being required from what's cooked with fire, it doesn't apply here. Okay, how so? Because we cannot make partial nasikh, saying that if you eat camel meat that's cooked by fire, there's no wudu needed. Whereas if you eat it when it's raw, now you need wudu. Okay, we cannot make this partial nasikh, so it's only it's mansukh to make wudu from eating cooked camel meat. Okay, there's no dalil to support that. You cannot make a partial nasikh. So this wouldn't abrogate the flesh of camel that's eaten raw. So due to this partial nasikh that would have to be the case, the abrogation doesn't work. The nasikh isn't applicable here. Another response is the hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu, stating that wudu is not required from eating meat cooked on fire. It's broad and it's a general narration. And we know that some ahkam in the sharia that are general or broad, there is some exceptions to them. Okay, so this is another response, that we have sometimes exceptions to the rule. So we have in general this hadith that mentions that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wouldn't make wudu anymore. He left off making wudu from a meal that was cooked or meat that was cooked by fire. That's the general hukum. But then we have specific ahadith, like we said, where Rasulullah commanded to make wudu from camel meat. So the general ruling is that there's no wudu required from eating meat that is cooked by fire. But then we have an exception, and that is camel meat. And that camel meat, you need to make wudu from it when it's cooked by fire or otherwise. So that's an exception to the rule there. So there's no need to claim that something is mansukh, that there's a nasikh and abrogation here, because we can reconcile between them very easily, as we just seen here. So, and when we do this, we see that we actually are using all of the ahadith, we're taking them all into consideration before coming to a conclusion here. So, finally, if we want to look at the last thing, is that the statements of some of the Sahaba that we mentioned before, that wudu is from what exits, not from what enters. How do we refute those? We said some of them are not authentic, but for the ones that are authentic, how would we refute those? There's two ways to refute it. Number one, if we say that entry is not a nullifier, it's only that which exits the body, then what's discharged from the body is what nullifies the wudu. Then we can also counter that by saying there is an exception to the rule. Okay, that there could be something, one thing, but we can say in general, what exits the body is what's a nullifier, and what enters the body isn't a nullifier in general, but there is an exception, that eating camel meat is the exception to that, that whatever enters the body, what's consumed of camel meat, it in fact nullifies the wudu. And that's because the hadith in Sahih Muslim is very clear and direct, right to the point. And even though we said that the al-qawl al-mu'tamad fi madhhab al-Shafi'i is that eating camel meat doesn't nullify wudu, we have Imam al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah, who was a Shafi'i, and he said in response to these athar, he said that the statements of these Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, okay, these statements that are authentic to the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, that are saying that wudu is not required from what enters but rather from what exits, we do not leave the statement of Rasulullah for the statement of Sahaba radiallahu anhum. If we have a clear, authentic narration from Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we would give that precedence without a doubt over the statements of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. So, to summarize, the hadith in Muslim, like we said, is very clear. The hadith from Jawad ibn Samurah is very clear, and also the hadith of Bara ibn Azib radiallahu anhu, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to perform wudu from eating the meat of a camel. It's very, very clear. So this is the correct opinion, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And with this, inshallah ta'ala, we will conclude. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to what He loves and to accept from us and to make us sincere. Allahumma ameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammad. Alhamdulillah.